Snow drifted through the Chicago night as Olivia Hart stepped into the silent boardroom, a single binder pressed against her chest. The city lights glimmered behind her, but all she could see was the man sitting at the end of the table, the same man who once left her with nothing. His company was collapsing and she was the only one who could save it. For 20 years, Olivia rebuilt her life from the ashes of betrayal, carrying a secret pain she never spoke of. Now the man who broke her past needed her brilliance, her strength, her vision, and neither of them was ready for the truths buried beneath their reunion. This wasn't just a business crisis. It was the confrontation of a lifetime. Tonight, hidden lies would surface, redemption would be tested, and a woman who once stood alone at a cold bus stop would decide the fate of an empire and the fate of a man she once loved. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. The evening lights of downtown Chicago flickered across the glass walls as Olivia Hart stepped into the executive lobby, her breath still sharp from the cold. She held a slim black folder close to her ribs, the same way she once held sketchbooks during the years she rebuilt herself in silence. The hum of the building felt heavy, as if the entire structure waited for something to break. A young assistant approached her nervously. "Ms. Hart, they're all inside." He didn't need to say more. She could hear the agitation behind the conference room door, raised voices, clipped arguments, the panic of a company standing on a fault line. She pushed the door open. Dozens of eyes turned. Some widened with recognition, others with the quiet disbelief that the woman they had begged to meet actually existed outside the rumors. The strategist who rescued failing giants, the consultant whispered about in boardrooms, the one whose heartwarming story magazines liked to distort into a fairy tale. But none of that mattered now. At the head of the table sat Robert Wyman. He looked nothing like the young, ambitious man who once promised her a future and left her instead at a bus stop in New York, with nothing but a suitcase and a shaking sense of betrayal. Time had carved deeper truths into him. Lines around the eyes, shoulders that slumped under more than age. When he saw her, his breath hitched. "Olivia," her name fell from his mouth as if it hurt. She didn't answer. She simply set her folder on the table and opened it with steady fingers. Inside were the documents that could determine whether Hart and Wyman Technologies survived another month. One executive cleared his throat. "We appreciate you coming on such short notice. The board is—" "I'm not here for the board," Olivia said softly. Her gaze remained on the documents, not on Robert, not yet. The tension thickened. She felt Robert watching her, searching her face for anything. Anger, softness, a hint of the girl he once knew. But Olivia had learned long ago to guard the parts of herself that once shattered too easily. Finally, she looked up. "Let's begin." Robert flinched, as if the words carried 20 years of distance. The room quieted, waiting for the first fault line to crack. The meeting room settled into a tense stillness as Olivia flipped to the first page of her notes. The executives leaned forward, desperate for solutions, but Robert's eyes never left her face. He looked as if he were trying to memorize every small change in her, the steadier posture, the measured breathing, the quiet authority that filled the space around her. She pointed to a graph projected on the wall. "Your supply chain is collapsing from 3 directions. The Chicago facility is operating on outdated contracts. 2 of your regional managers are hiding losses, and your last investor is preparing to withdraw." A few gasps rose around the table. She continued, unshaken. "You didn't call me for advice. You called me because you're out of time." Robert swallowed hard. "Then tell us what we have to do." Olivia's fingers paused over the page. A faint tremor threatened to break through, one she quickly hid by clasping her hands together. She remembered standing in front of him once, years ago, asking for help he refused to give. She remembered the ache in her chest as she waited at the bus stop in New York, clutching a crumpled letter and realizing she had no place to sleep. But she pushed the memory away. "You start with transparency," she said. "Hide nothing. Not from the board, not from your employees, and not from your clients." "And the cost," one executive whispered. Olivia met his eyes. "Everything you're afraid to lose." Robert exhaled slowly, his voice unsteady. "Will you lead the restructuring?" The question hit heavier than he intended. The room shifted, Even the air conditioner seemed to hum louder. Olivia closed her folder. This isn't a simple contract. It requires access to every department, every file, every financial statement. She let the words settle. And full authority to override whoever stands in the way. Some executives shifted, uncomfortable. Robert didn't. You'll have it, he said immediately. Olivia studied him, looking for hesitation. She found something else, a flicker of remorse, maybe even fear, the kind she once wished he had shown when he walked away from her life. She nodded once. Then I'll need to speak to your department heads privately. Tonight. A wave of unease swept across the room. Something in her tone made them realize the truth. This wasn't a consultant arriving to save them. This was a woman who had learned to rebuild entire worlds, starting from nothing. Olivia gathered her notes and walked toward the door. Olivia, Robert called softly. She stopped, barely. His voice cracked. I never forgot that night. She didn't look back, but her hand tightened around the folder as she stepped into the hallway. The hallway outside the conference room was quiet, too quiet for a building that once carried the confidence of a rising empire. Olivia walked past framed photos of milestones she remembered only from a distance. Ribbon cuttings, award ceremonies, glossy smiles. In one picture, Robert stood beside his former partners, looking invincible. She wondered if he had felt invincible the night he left her behind. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Miss Hart. The HR director, Chloe Ramirez, hurried toward her with a tablet pressed to her chest. Her eyes revealed sleepless nights. The department heads are waiting in the small boardroom. Olivia nodded. Give me 5 minutes. Chloe hesitated. Is it true you worked with the Carter Foundation? The program for struggling students? Yes. Something in Olivia's tone made Chloe straighten, as if receiving permission to breathe. I was one of them, she whispered. Olivia paused. A small act of kindness from strangers years ago had shaped Chloe's future. The connection struck Olivia with unexpected warmth. Not all parts of her past were defined by pain. Then let's fix this place, Olivia said softly. Chloe smiled, a brief, grateful smile, before disappearing down the hall. Olivia entered a small office to gather herself, but the moment the door clicked shut, the quiet felt heavier. Her reflection in the dark window stared back, older, sharper, yet carrying the same hidden pain she never allowed anyone to see. A knock. She didn't move. Another knock, slower this time. Olivia, hi, may I? Robert's voice, low, hesitant. She exhaled sharply through her nose. No, not now. But the door opened anyway, just slightly. He didn't step inside. He simply stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, as if afraid to cross an invisible line. You're going to hear things about why the company fell apart, he said, but none of them matter as much as the truth I owe you. She didn't turn. I'm not here for your truth. I know, but I can't keep carrying it. Olivia closed her eyes. His voice wasn't the confident tone she remembered. It was thinner now, like fabric worn down over years of guilt. Finish the meeting, she said quietly. We'll talk after. Robert nodded, defeated. He started to close the door, then stopped. You deserved more than what I gave you. His words hung in the room, trembling. Olivia's hand tightened around the back of the chair. She still didn't look at him. The department heads gathered around the smaller boardroom table, each wearing the same strained expression, half fear, half disbelief that Olivia Hart was now examining every corner of their operation. Papers rustled, chairs shifted, and screens glowed with incomplete spreadsheets they hoped she wouldn't notice. She noticed all of them. Olivia placed her folder down gently. This will be direct, she began. Your company isn't collapsing because of market shifts. It's collapsing because too many people stopped telling the truth. A murmur spread through the room. The head of production, a tall man with tense shoulders, tried to defend himself. We've been overwhelmed since... Overwhelmed is not an excuse for falsified reports, Olivia said, and it doesn't explain the missing inventory or the ghost contractors paid through offshore accounts. They stared at her, stunned. She tapped a document. These signatures don't match. Hand these expenses. She slid the paper to the marketing director. They're padded by at least 40%. The woman flushed, her eyes lowering in shame. Olivia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The weight of her calm precision cut deeper than anger ever could. "Here's what happens next," she continued. "Starting tonight, each department submits real numbers, not adjusted, not interpreted. Real. I will rebuild this company from the inside out, but only if you cooperate fully." The IT director cleared his throat. "And if we don't?" Olivia leaned back slightly, her gaze steady. "Then tomorrow morning your replacements will be sitting in these chairs." Silence. Then the production head exhaled, long and shaken. "We'll cooperate." One by one the others nodded. Olivia gathered her notes, ready to dismiss them, when the door opened. Robert stepped inside, hesitating at the threshold, like a man unsure whether he belonged anywhere in the room. His eyes flicked across the tense faces before settling on her. "Olivia," he said softly, "can I speak to you?" The room froze. Olivia didn't react immediately. The executives glanced between them, sensing an unseen history hanging in the air. She closed her folder. "We're done for now. Email me the preliminary numbers within 2 hours." The department heads hurried out, avoiding Robert's eyes as they passed him. He waited until the last one left. Then, with the door clicking shut behind him, he stepped closer. Not too close, but close enough for Olivia to feel the unspoken ache between them. "Please," he said, almost whispering, "just give me 5 minutes." Olivia's jaw tightened. 5 minutes, she repeated, her voice steady. "Then you tell me everything." The office felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves leaned in to listen. Olivia stood near the window, arms crossed, her silhouette framed by the fading Chicago skyline. Robert remained by the door, unsure whether approaching her was courage or foolishness. "You said you wanted the truth," he began. "I said you would tell it," she replied, not turning. He inhaled slowly. "The night I left you, I didn't walk away because I stopped caring." A bitter laugh escaped her before she could stop it. "You left me at a bus stop with a suitcase and a promise you broke before sunrise." He winced. "I know, and it haunts me more than anything I've done in this company." Olivia finally turned, her expression unreadable. "Why did you do it?" Robert stepped forward, but she lifted a hand, keeping distance between them. He swallowed and began, "My father had just died. The board was threatening to strip me of everything if I didn't take control immediately. They said you were a distraction, that if I stayed with you, they'd pull their support and collapse the company. I panicked. I chose the company, and I shouldn't have." Olivia stared at him, her voice soft but sharp. "So you sacrificed me." "I was 23, he whispered, "and terrified. I thought I'd come back to you once things settled. But then, I saw you waiting there, and I knew the damage was already done." She looked away, blinking hard. The memory of that cold winter night flooded back, the headlights passing, the ache in her chest, the numbness in her fingers, as she realized he wasn't coming back. "I tried to reach you," Robert added, voice cracking, "but you disappeared. You changed numbers, moved states. I didn't know where you went." "I rebuilt my life," she said. "That's where I went." He nodded, eyes lowered. "And you did it without me. You became everything I wasn't brave enough to be." Silence stretched between them, heavy, unsteady, filled with years neither of them could rewrite. Then Olivia spoke quietly. "You're not telling me this to make peace. You're telling me because you're afraid." Robert lifted his eyes to hers, tired, honest, exposed. "Yes, I'm afraid this company will fall apart, and that you'll walk away again before I can make anything right." Olivia's expression softened, but only for a moment. "Then don't waste my time," she said. That night the building remained mostly dark, except for the floor where Olivia worked. Papers covered the table in organized stacks, each exposing a deeper layer of the company's hidden damage. She moved silently between documents, her focus sharp, her breath steady despite the weight of everything she had uncovered. Chloe entered quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this." Olivia accepted it with a small nod. "Thank you." Chloe hesitated before speaking. "The others, they're scared. Not of you, of what the truth will reveal." Olivia sipped the coffee. "Truth always comes with a cost." Chloe lowered her voice. "And him? What does he cost you?" Olivia didn't answer. She looked at the spreadsheets spread across the table, losses disguised as progress, invoices signed by people who didn't exist, money vanishing into accounts no one could trace. And beneath all of it, she saw the same mistake she'd once seen in herself, trusting the wrong person until everything collapsed. A knock at the door. Chloe stepped aside as Robert entered, carrying a box of old records. He looked exhausted, but something in his posture had changed. Less pride, more humility. "I found these in storage," he said. "Files from the early years. Things the current board might not know existed." Olivia gestured to the table. "Put them there." He did, carefully, as if each file were fragile. Chloe sensed the shift in atmosphere and excused herself. The door closed, leaving Olivia and Robert alone again. Robert leaned on the table, weary. "You're uncovering things I should have seen years ago." "Should have," she repeated, "but didn't." He nodded. "I was so focused on growth that I stopped noticing what was rotting underneath, and I let the wrong people run too much." Olivia opened one of the old files. Inside, she found early sketches, designs she recognized immediately. Her designs, the ones she had created when they were young, dreaming together about building something meaningful. She froze. "You kept these?" she asked quietly. Robert's voice softened. "I kept everything that still reminded me of who I was before I ruined things." Olivia traced a finger over her old signature. The ink faded, but intact. A rush of memories surfaced. Late nights in tiny apartments, sketches spread across the floor, whispered plans they once believed in. She closed the folder gently. "These won't save your company." "I know," he said. "But maybe they can help us understand where we began, before we figure out where we're going." Olivia looked at him, really looked, and saw the weight of 20 years resting on his shoulders. For the first time, she didn't look away. Morning light seeped through the blinds, casting thin stripes across the table where Olivia had fallen asleep for only a moment. She straightened, rubbing her temple. The night's work lay in organized piles, proof of the company's bleeding foundation, and of how much she had carried alone. A soft rustle came from the doorway. Robert stood there with 2 pastries in a paper bag, unsure whether he was welcome. "I thought you might not have eaten." Olivia didn't answer, but she didn't send him away either. He set the bag down carefully and stepped back, as if approaching her too quickly might break something fragile. She reviewed a final spreadsheet. "Your CFO has been covering losses for nearly 4 years," she said, "and someone higher than him approved every adjustment." Robert's face drained. "Higher than him means the board." Olivia nodded. "And they plan to blame you when this collapses." He sank into a chair, elbows on his knees, his voice low. "I should have seen this." "You trusted them," Olivia said. "You trusted people who cared more about their positions than the company." "And you?" he asked quietly. "Do you still believe I only cared about the company and not about you?" Olivia stiffened. "This isn't about us." "It is," he whispered. "Because I lost more than a partner that night. I lost the only person who ever challenged me to be better." She didn't respond. Instead, she opened another folder. "We confront the board today. I'll present the findings. You'll stay silent until I tell you otherwise." Robert looked up, surprised. "You're protecting me." "I'm protecting the truth," she corrected. "If the board buries this, hundreds of employees lose their jobs." He nodded slowly. "Whatever you need from me, I'll do it." Olivia closed the folder. For a moment, her gaze softened, not with forgiveness but with acknowledgement. 20 years had carved them into different people. Yet somehow, despite the distance, the silence, the anger, they were here now, facing a crisis that demanded everything they had become. She gathered the documents. "The board meets in 1 hour." As she walked toward the door, Robert called out gently, almost afraid of the answer. "Olivia, after this is over, can we talk about us?" She paused, hand on the door frame, her back still to him. "We'll talk," she said, "but only after the truth is no longer hiding." Robert breathed out, relieved, and Olivia stepped into the hallway, ready to fight the storm waiting for them. The boardroom felt colder than the rest of the building, as if the air itself braced for confrontation. 12 board members sat in a polished semicircle, their expressions carefully neutral, their expensive pens aligned like weapons. Olivia entered without hesitation, carrying a single binder. Robert followed a step behind, silent as she'd instructed. The chairman, Leonard Graves, forced a polite smile. "Ms. Hart, we've heard impressive things about your reputation." Olivia didn't sit. "For then you know I don't waste time." A ripple of annoyance passed across a few faces. She placed the binder on the table and opened it. "Your financial reports for the past 4 years are falsified. Losses were hidden. Contracts were rerouted through unverified vendors. Several signatures were forged." A murmur rose, controlled but tense. Leonard leaned back. "Those are serious accusations." "They're not accusations," Olivia replied. "They're facts." She clicked a remote. Charts lit up on the screen. Color-coded failures, inconsistencies, and transactions that made the room shift uncomfortably in their chairs. One board member cleared his throat. "Who approved these discrepancies?" Olivia waited a beat. "You did." A silence dropped so heavy it swallowed the room. Robert looked around in disbelief as Olivia tapped a page. Every adjustment, every concealed deficit, every offshore payment passed through the board's signature chain. "You plan to shift the blame onto Robert Wyman to protect your positions." Leonard's mask cracked for a fraction of a second. "This is outrageous." Olivia stepped closer, her voice low but unmistakably steady. "What's outrageous is how many employees would lose their homes because of your adjustments." A younger board member shifted uneasily. "What do you want, Ms. Hart?" "Resignations," she said simply. "All of you." Gasps, protests, whispers turning sharp. Leonard narrowed his eyes. "And if we refuse?" Olivia clicked to the final slide, a compiled report ready for federal investigation. Robert looked at her, stunned. She hadn't shown him that part. Leonard paled. You'd expose us?" Olivia leaned forward. "I'd protect the workers you endangered." The board members exchanged glances, panic spreading beneath their composed facades. One by one, their defenses crumbled. Leonard finally exhaled, defeated. "You'll have our resignations by the end of the day." Olivia closed the binder. Robert stared at her as if seeing her for the first time, not as the woman he left behind, but as the woman who now stood stronger than all of them. The moment the boardroom door closed behind the last member, the tension in the air broke like a long-held breath. Olivia gathered her papers calmly, but her pulse beat faster than she allowed anyone to see. Robert remained still, staring at the table as if trying to understand how everything unraveled, and how she'd stitched it back together in a single morning. He finally spoke, voice low. "You saved the company." Olivia shook her head. "No, I just removed the people who were destroying it." Robert stepped toward her, hesitant. "Then let me say it differently. You saved me." She froze, the words striking deeper than she expected. She closed the binder carefully, needing a moment before she trusted her own voice. "There's still work to do," she said. "A company without a board is a company without a spine. We'll need interim leadership, restructuring plans, and legal follow-up." "You'll lead it," Robert said quickly. "All of it. I want you at the head of this recovery." Olivia hesitated. "Robert, this isn't about titles." "It's not a title," he said. "It's trust." The word lingered, painful in its history, fragile in its offering. He took a breath as if gathering courage. "Olivia, 20 years ago, I broke the one thing I never meant to break, and I've lived every year since trying to pretend I didn't feel it." She looked away. "I don't need your apology. I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said softly. "I'm asking to earn a place in your life again, even if it's just as someone who respects you." She didn't move. The silence between them was thick with years of unspoken hurt, lost dreams, and the sharp memory of a girl left standing alone in the cold. Finally, Olivia spoke, her voice restrained. "You didn't just leave me. You erased the future we planned." "I know," he whispered, "and I had to build one without you. I know that too." Their eyes met, 2 different lifetimes colliding. Olivia gathered her papers. "I'm staying until this company stands on its own. After that, we'll see." A faint, uncertain hope flickered across Robert's face. As she moved toward the door, he asked quietly, "And us? Do we still have a chance?" Olivia paused, not denying, not promising. "Second chances aren't given," she said. "They're earned." Then she stepped out, leaving the words hanging like a fragile invitation. Winter settled over Chicago again. Quiet, bright, the kind of cold that sharpened the air. 3 months had passed since the board's resignation, and Hart and Wyman Technologies was no longer the fractured giant Olivia first walked into. Departments communicated honestly, finances stabilized, employees felt safe again. And at the center of it all, Olivia's presence had become the steady pulse of the company. She stood on the mezzanine overlooking the production floor, watching workers celebrate the relaunch of their flagship project. Laughter echoed through the building, real, relieved, hopeful. Chloe approached with a stack of reports. Payroll is stable, investors are returning, and the engineering team wants to name the new lab after you. Olivia smiled, small but genuine. Tell them no. Name it after the employees who stayed. Chloe grinned. You really are something else. Before Olivia could reply, Robert appeared at the top of the stairs. He no longer carried the rigid posture of a man crushed by guilt. He walked with humility now, with gratitude, with something almost like peace. Can we talk? He asked. Olivia nodded and followed him to the quiet rooftop garden the company rarely used. Snow dusted the benches, and city lights glowed below them like distant embers. Robert exhaled, visible in the cold air. I've spent months rebuilding what I broke here, but there's something I can't rebuild without you. She waited. He continued, voice steady but raw. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm asking whether you believe I'm not the same man who left you in the dark. Olivia looked out at the skyline. People can change, she said softly, but change isn't a promise. It's a daily choice. He stepped closer, careful, patient. Then let me choose you, day by day, however long it takes. For the first time, Olivia allowed the past to loosen its grip. She remembered the hurt, yes, but also the good that came after. The second chances she believed in for others, but rarely for herself. She turned toward him. I'm not ready to rewrite the past, she said, but maybe I'm ready to write something new. A slow, relieved smile softened Robert's face. Snow drifted between them, gentle as forgiveness, and for the first time in 20 years, they stood side by side, no longer defined by what was lost, but by what they might still build. Months after the company's rebirth, the building no longer echoed with fear. Instead, it hummed with purpose. Workers passed Olivia in the hall with grateful smiles, the kind that carried stories of security, hope, and second chances. She didn't ask for praise. She only watched the quiet dignity return to a place once ruled by silence and doubt. On Robert's desk sat a framed sketch, one of the old designs she had drawn in their early 20s. He had placed it beside a new blueprint they created together, a symbolic bridge between who they once were and who they had become. The past wasn't erased, but it no longer held them hostage. It had turned into something softer, something that allowed room for forgiveness. One evening, after the last employees had gone home, Olivia walked through the renovated innovation lab. A small bronze plaque near the entrance caught her eye, built for those who rise after falling. She touched it gently, recognizing her own story reflected in the metal. Not a victory over anyone else, but victory over the pain she once carried alone. Outside, snowflakes drifted across the courtyard where Robert waited. No dramatic words, no grand gestures, just quiet presence. They walked side by side, steps unhurried, letting the night breathe around them. Redemption wasn't a destination, it was a choice they both kept making, one small act at a time. Because sometimes life gives us the chance to rebuild, not what we lost, but what we were meant to become. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which moment touched you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of kindness, dignity, and family. And thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul.